Hi there, welcome to my live today. I am starting a little bit late. I know that it's 4:45 in LA. I am currently in the East Coast for an event that I'm working, so it's 7:45 right now. I meant to get on at 7:30, but can you tell something different today? Well, outside of my surroundings, because I'm in a hotel room at the Ace Hotel in Brooklyn, and I'm actually uh, what is that called? I'm actually using my GoPro, and I started to try and figure it out. I should have started way earlier, and it took me more than half hour. I thought I would get it done in like 15 minutes because ChatGPT is pretty good about all of that. But I'm so sorry that I'm late for anyone who might be joining, and I realized I don't even have my chat chat open. I literally still need to figure out how to use this. But anyway, I am here because I am doing my weekly wedding planning Wednesdays, though I did just realize next week I'm actually flying during this time, so I will have to reschedule it for Thursday, but I will still show up. I have just been trying to think about what to talk about because, to be honest, I just haven't had a lot of bandwidth these days to really focus on content and to be creative and to write it all out. But there's still so much on my mind, and there's still so much to talk about because I feel like every time I work a wedding or an event, just things come up. And today I really wanted to discuss weddings and people. I've been seeing a lot of threads out there. It's wedding season right now, as you all know or might know, and it's going to be heading into booking season where people are starting to plan for next year, next fall. And so there's been a lot of things about people and managing relationships and all of this. So I just kind of wanted to dive into it. Just my observations about, my own experience getting married, seeing clients as well. And of course, everyone is so different, but I think basically everyone needs to understand how to manage it a little bit, and it always helps to know how to manage it. Um, but if you're new here, my name is Jane Yu. I am a wedding and event planner based in Los Angeles, but really I can plan weddings anywhere. I own a company called UNS Events with my husband John. He's the DJ side of the business, and I love supporting engaged couples planning and designing their wedding from beginning to end. And my goal really is to help their stress level, keep their stress level to a minimum, and while they're really enjoying the process, hopefully to a maximum. Because let's face it, wedding planning is already stressful and overwhelming, and it just really helps, I think, to have any kind of support during that process. So today I made a video in the past on my YouTube channel, like a more edited one, about family and weddings. And I didn't want to just regurgitate that. I have linked it here up above if you do want to, and down below if you do want to check that one out, because obviously, again, everyone's family looks different. And I just do see a lot of family dynamics a lot of times. So I didn't want to just do that one again because weddings are about people as well, right? So the first thing that I wanted to talk about is with people, it's like it brings out the best in people, but also the worst in people. I do see a lot of complaints on social media and threads just about people not showing up for them, or people that they were surprised by. And I think for me, I don't know, when I was planning my own wedding, I didn't have too many expectations, like when it came to planning the wedding. I think planning the wedding, I didn't really expect help. Of course, I am an event planner, when I needed maybe someone just to sound the board, like just as a sounding board, I would maybe ask my friends and things. But I think for the most part, I just kind of knew what I wanted decor-wise and all of that and just kind of did it. And then whenever there were things that John and I both cared about, then we would talk about it and figure out what we wanted to spend time on and spend money on and all of that. And so I feel like I was pretty blessed in the sense that we didn't have too many family expectations, and there wasn't so much pressure on us other than having the wedding. I think in hindsight, maybe I would have given our parents or family like a little more involvement or a little more say, but they were so gracious to contribute to part of our wedding as well. And so, but they were really not, didn't have high expectations for it, even with the guest list and things like that, which was really, really nice. And I know not everyone has the liberty of that. But I think when it comes to people, I feel like in the same way that you might be disappointed by people who don't show up, you might also be surprised by the people who do. And I think, of course, every situation is so nuanced and so different. But with the people that do show up, I think you really want to lean into that and hold on to those people, you know, because I think there's people, I'm not saying just show up in the sense of like showing up at your wedding or whatnot, but maybe like supporting you in a way that you didn't know would be helpful. Because sometimes there's ways that people support you that feels more burdensome on you. But if there's people who just show up unasked, I think that's really, really, really great and really an awesome feeling to just kind of feel. Um, and then there's some people that might just not show up. I mean, we had guests, a lot of guests who didn't give us any gifts. And I think, you know, I've talked to other people who've had the same experience, which I thought was really surprising. And even if there was no gift per se, let's say, I think even a card is a great gesture as a gift or something, but there was quite a handful of people who didn't give anything. And I don't know if that's because they didn't really know that they were supposed to or whatnot. But I found that a little bit surprising. But at the end of the day, I think for me, I do have a personally, I kind of have a lower threshold, I think, of expectations from people. So I was a little bit surprised, but not so disappointed. And it is interesting because I always ask people, hey, do you still talk to everyone who came to your wedding? And I think it's hard because every season of your life is so different. So if you got married really young or getting married really young, your life in 10, 20 years or even 5 years is going to look so different from when you got married. So I think it's okay. Just as I get older, it's like relationships change and it's not expected to stay the same. So you can't really expect everyone who came to your wedding that you might still be friends with them or you might still be in contact with them. And everyone's lives change. People move on to different directions. And, you know, that's all well and good. But just going back, I think having super high expectations of the people around you is going to just make your life a little bit harder. I think it's, if you do have expectations, I think you should communicate them, or if you do need help from somebody or some of your friends or family, I think just talking to them about it is going to be really helpful. So obviously communication is very, very important just in general. So I think that's something that you can make sure you do rather than having unspoken expectations of people around you and then feeling kind of resentment about it. And also you want to consider maybe your friends or family or whoever you want to help from, maybe they're going through their own life stuff. Maybe they're going through their own life changes and you just never know what people are going through. So I think it's really important to just recognize and just be realistic about what you're expecting from people because, you know, it is a very important and happy time in your life. And of course, you might want people to be involved, but I think you want to be reasonable and as fair as possible. I have seen friendships break over wedding planning or, you know, people in wedding parties, which is really a shame. I don't know the ins and outs of all these stories, of course, but I have seen that happen just with people that I know, maybe with clients. And so I think it's just important I feel like a lot of things are misunderstandings. If someone's outright being terrible, then okay, but if they're in your wedding party, there's a reason you were close. And I think if that friendship is worth saving, you know, there's things you can do to salvage that. But just being upfront with whatever you want from your friends and family, I think it will be really helpful. rather than just expecting something and then heading into the resentment sort of phase. And then, of course, there are vendors. That's the people that I deal with all the time. And I think if you're planning your wedding yourself, like you don't have a planner, maybe you'll have a coordinator, but you don't have a planner, I think it's really tough to be dealing with so many different people, especially in the last few months, because there's just so much you have to coordinate. But I've seen a lot of different types of couples, like brides and grooms, and just different people that are planning their wedding and the way they speak to vendors sometimes. And I think my rule of thumb is you just really want to treat everyone with kindness. I think, especially when it comes to pricing or deliverables from vendors, you do want to be very clear. But I think you don't want to be in the business of like squeezing every drop out of a vendor. Of course, there's always negotiations to be had. You can always try to get the price down and things like that. But you also don't want to step on any toes, because this is a person's livelihood and there's a reason they price things this way. And perhaps if you don't trust that the fee matches their experience, then maybe you don't need to move forward with that vendor. So I think, I have seen people just talk to vendors just in a way that I feel like sometimes makes me uncomfortable. And I feel like I don't want to say I'm too nice, but I do let some things slide only because I feel like it's not going to impact the integrity of the event. And there's only so much that I can nitpick, because also mentally for me, I'm doing this all the time. And I think with experience, you just kind of learn how to let go of certain things, and also what things to really, I don't want to say make a stink about, but kind of make a stink about. Like, there's some things that you have to give feedback on because it just wasn't happening. For instance, I just did like a retreat at a property, and it was a 5-star resort, and it was just not up to par. Like the service and the reaction time for guests, and it was just not what we expected for the amount that we paid. So of course, if there's such a disconnect, then I think it's absolutely warranted that we say something and give them feedback, because that should not have been the case, because that was not what was discussed in the plans. And so I think there's just a time and place for everything. And so my rule of thumb is, if that person is not for you, then rather than trying to make them fit into what is for you, I think it's better for couples to find someone who's the right fit for them. And a lot of times it's not going to be the most expensive or the most cheap or whatever. I really think it's about the vibe. Like, do you connect with them? Are you excited to work with them? And even if it's like a floral designer or even something as simple as a photo booth, you want to feel good about them, right? It's not just about the money or whatnot. And so sometimes I've heard about vendors being, top-notch vendors. They might not always deliver. Everyone has bad days. Everyone has good days. I'm not perfect myself. I definitely have days that are much better than the others. But I think it's just important to find people that you're going to trust, that will be honest with you, that will just come through for you at the end of the day. And again, communication, you can really tell that from the beginning. And so I think it just really depends a lot on personality, on what you want, what you need. There's no right or wrong answer. Yes, there are certain things, like there's going to be more experienced people, there's going to be people that are just starting out, etc., etc. But I think even as a planner, I'm still learning how to kind of navigate finding and making sure these vendors follow through. Because to be honest, there's vendors that I've also used a lot, and then there's a couple of events that I was surprised when it wasn't 100% follow through, because I hire them because I trust them. And that's not going to make me not want to work with them again, but it is going to give me a little bit of pause. Or if I do want to work with them again, I am going to give them the feedback to give them the opportunity to make sure they show up. And so they show up better next time. And so that's kind of vendors. And I say this because wedding planning is stressful, and I think it's easy for couples to get short with vendors or get frustrated. And a lot of times I get frustrated too. And that's why I think having a planner is really great, or at least a coordinator who helps you with the home stretch, because at that point you're probably so sick of talking to people and making decisions and all of this that having a planner, if you have that ability, like financial comfortability, to have someone do that on your behalf, if that's something that you just really don't want to do. I think the thing that vendors probably appreciate about planners is, well, I don't know about other planners, but I think it makes the process a little bit more quicker because the planner kind of knows all the nuances of planning versus couples who may be probably doing it for the first time, and vendors kind of have to educate them too. And so it kind of helps for both people because planner can educate the client and keep the vendor kind of afloat in terms of not burying themselves in like having to explain like all of the nuances to the client. But that's kind of my perspective on dealing with vendors. And if there are people though, because it's not like vendors are always kind or vendors are always easy to work with. And I think for me, I always tell my clients, hey, if something is not working for you, please tell me, because I don't want you sitting there mad at me about something that happened that I don't even know about. Right? So I'm always telling them, please, I try to give them the space to tell them to please tell me if something is wrong or if something's not working for you, because I really want to know. And even after the fact, I do a survey because I kind of want to know how people work. Because even though sometimes it's a lot of miscommunication that I didn't even realize, or things that they I don't want to say misinterpreted, just interpreted differently than what I was trying to tell them. And so it just goes to show, like, everyone is so different, and we just have to try to understand each other as best as possible. And that's really what I try to do. And I try to explain to my clients when dealing with frustrating vendors, for sure. But I don't think anyone, I mean, I hope not. I hope nobody is out to get anyone. But, if there's like any price gouging or like being unreasonable, then that's okay. Like that's a whole other issue. But in general, I find most people I work with have been so lovely. And, it's just figuring out who's the best fit for everyone or for you. And, I think at the root of it all, you really want to be true to yourself. You don't want to get lost in the planning so that it just becomes so unenjoyable. I think trying to enjoy the process, remembering that the vendors, the guests, your friends and family, like they're all in it for you. And I get it. There might be some people that just don't do that, or that really just don't show up, or just being negative or whatever. Then I think that's time for boundaries. It's like setting your boundaries, and like they don't need to be involved. Like they don't need to be involved in your space of this happy day, of this happy time. And that's on them then, because that's not on you to make them feel better about your decisions and your planning, right? So you tell them, hey, like maybe we don't need to be working so closely together. And it's totally fine if that you're not in a place to do that, but I need my space to do what I need to do. And I know a lot of this, it's so much easier said than done, but I think even if it's done in a very baby step kind of way, I think it is necessary and can be very, very helpful for your own sanity, for the most part. The last people point that I want to make is the guests, for sure, are a part, like guest management is a part of my job. And I do find that some couples find it really important to make sure they say hi to everybody. And I do kind of wish that I had made it a more of a point to do that at my wedding. But it's such a whirlwind that day. And you do want to remember everything. So I think I do like table rounds because you kind of get a chance to see everyone, but it just goes by so fast. So I don't know. I'm kind of on the fence about it. I did do a wedding recently where we called up all the tables like to the dance floor, each table to take photos with the couple. And actually, that I think worked out really well because it was a pretty big dance floor, it was a really big party. And I think taking the couple around to 25 tables or whatever would have just taken way too long. And so we decided to just call them up, and it worked out pretty well. But it's just a lot. It's a lot for the couple. And if that's something that you just don't want to do, I don't think you should feel pressure to do it. Even as a planner, as a planner, when I am, what's that called? I'm just kind of like gathering people and corralling them, and people are not listening again because of the weather. I talked about this a little bit a couple weeks ago. Like, it's a lot of energy spent, and I think that's the beauty and also the hard part about it, to be honest. I just spoke to a friend who she's like, she and her partner are already married, but they never had a wedding, and she's always thought about it, and she just wants to do like a small destination wedding with like 20 to 30 people. And I was like, that sounds beautiful and that sounds awesome. Like it's like a vacation with your friends and family. And there's just so many different ways to do it. But I think, people with big families, sometimes it's hard because if you're someone who wants to keep it small but has a large family, there's also those expectations. I don't know where I was going with that one. I just remembered being at a wedding, and I'm Korean, and so I've done a lot of Korean weddings and also just Asian American weddings, and I'm second generation, right? And a lot of our parents' generation is it's different. The culture is different, and when they show up, the aunties and uncles, it's like so chaotic and so like so much energy, and it's not ever really negative, I don't believe, but it's just a lot of like managing on the ground. And in the thick of it, it is kind of fun, but like at the end, I'm always like, wow, like that was a lot of energy spent, and like I need a drink, that kind of thing. But all in all, to say, I hope that the people who are surrounding you during this time are only supporting you, showing up for you, happy for you that you're getting married. People might ask you weird questions, annoying questions, just brush them off. If people are like, hey, what time is the ceremony? You're like, please go to the website. Like, I think just drawing boundaries to keep your peace during this whole process is like the most important thing. And it'll make your journey more enjoyable, and also everyone you're dealing with, you won't come off in a certain way because you already know how to protect your peace and how you're going about things, and you can be satisfied and be good with that. Anything else that happens doesn't have to be on you, your burden. But again, I know that it's a really tricky just situation in general, or not tricky situation, but relationships with people in general are just tricky to navigate sometimes. And when you throw wedding planning in there, it just takes a weird turn sometimes. But you're not alone. I think that's like the biggest thing I wanted to say is you are definitely not alone. But I think embrace the good, let go of the bad, and most of all, enjoy the planning journey. So anyway, I hope that was helpful to hear. I feel like I haven't been really doing a lot of like how-to kind of things, but I will be talking a little bit about that. I just feel like a lot of wedding planning has to do with just managing different things like issues, people, and all of that. So I kind of wanted to just touch upon that because I feel like I've just been seeing a lot of messages, or not messages, but like just out there, people talking about it and things like that. So I just wanted to talk about it. If you have any questions or anything else you want to talk about or want me to talk about, please drop them in the chat, or I'm sorry, in the comments, because you might be watching a replay. And I will catch you next week. Next week I'll be here probably on Thursday or Friday instead. And I'm trying to be better about scheduling and figuring out the subjects and the topics in advance, so so that you know what's coming up. If you're planning for your 2026 wedding, I do have my digital wedding planner product linked in my comments below if that's something you're interested in checking out. So please check it out. And also, I have my free wedding planning guide that you can download. It's also linked down below. But hope you have a good evening, and I will see you next week. Bye.